Hello, I'm Kimberlie, and welcome to the weekend edition of the Native News Update. It's Friday, December 7th, and many of the stories you hear here can be found at IndianCountryNews.com. And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Protection of sites held sacred by American Indians and Alaska Natives will be bolstered under a Memorandum of Understanding signed December 6th by the 4 federal agencies and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. The memo signed by the Departments of Agriculture, Defense, Energy, and Interior also calls for improving tribal access to sites that are on federal land. The agencies plan to work during the next 5 years to raise awareness about sacred sites. That includes developing a website, a training program for federal employees, and guidance for managing sacred sites. The agreement comes just weeks after thieves made off with the rock carvings from a sacred site in California, Sierra Nevada, that the Paiute tribe uses for ceremonies. The site on the volcanic tableland north of Bishop, California, was what land managers called one of the most significant rock art sites in the region. Officials at the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Forest Service also announced the findings of a report on sacred sites. It includes a list of recommendations for working more closely with tribes in the protection, interpretation, and access to such sites. Arctic Slope Regional Corporation joins the U.S. Chamber in launching the Native American Enterprise Initiative. A press event was held December 6th in Washington, D.C. to launch the new effort aimed at focusing on economic issues facing Native American-owned enterprises. The Leadership Council will set the direction for the initiative by crafting a legislative agenda and determining the top priorities for advocacy. Some of the areas being targeted by the Native American Enterprise Initiative include energy development, taxation, and the EPA's approach to Indian country. For more information on the initiative, you can visit uschamber.com/NAEI. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development unveiled a new and improved online data tool to help HUD, state and local planning agencies, and others more clearly identify federally recognized Indian tribes, Native Hawaiian organizations, and Alaska Natives, so they can consult with them on development projects in places that have tribal historic, environmental, and cultural significance. HUD's Tribal Assessment Tool is an online database that contains information about federally recognized tribes and their geographic areas of current and ancestral interest down to the county level. It lists names and contact information for tribal leaders and tribal historic preservation officers, allowing users to query by street address, county, state, and tribe. Information generated from the directory can also be exported in a spreadsheet format for use in other programs. You can check out the tool at http://egis.hud.gov/tdat/tribal.aspx. Native American military veterans will be able to access health care closer to home thanks to an agreement between the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and the Indian Health Service. The agreement allows for Veteran Affairs to reimburse IHS for direct health care services provided to eligible American Indian and Alaska Native veterans. Health and Human Service Secretary Kathleen Sebelius first announced plans for the new partnership during this year's Tribal Summit in Washington, D.C. Veterans Affairs and IHS released more details December 6th, saying the agreement stemmed from much work among the agencies and tribal governments as they tried to find a more equitable solution for the bolstering access to care for veterans, particularly those in rural areas. Secretary of Veteran Affairs Eric Shinzeki says that VA is committed to expanding access to Native Americans with a full range of VA programs as earned by their service to our nation. On December 19th, a diverse group of citizens led by Mark Charles, a member of the Navajo Nation, will host a public reading of the Apology to Native Peoples of the United States from the 2010 Department of Defense Appropriations Act, H.R. 3326. This date marks the 3rd anniversary of the passing of H.R. 3326 and the Apology. When asked about what prompted him to initiate this public reading, Charles said that the wording of the apology and the way it was buried in an unrelated document were not appropriate or respectful ways to speak to the indigenous hosts of this land.
A question I frequently get asked is, how does it feel to be Native American and still be a citizen of the United States of America? I often tell people that it feels like our Native community is an old grandmother who has a very large and a very beautiful house. And years ago, some people came into our house and they locked us upstairs in the bedroom. Today, our house is full of people. They're sitting on our furniture, they're eating our food, they're having a party in our house. They've even come upstairs and unlocked the door to our bedroom, but it's much later. And we're tired, we're old, we're weak, and we're sick. And so we can't or we don't come out. But the thing that is the most painful is that virtually nobody comes upstairs to find the grandmother in the bedroom. Nobody sits down next to us on the bed and simply says, "Thank you. Thank you for letting us be in your house."
Charles says that the appropriation portion of this bill will be read by Native Americans in attendance in an effort to respectfully yet clearly highlight the irony of burying such important and historic words in a Department of Defense Appropriations Act. He also stated that the apology portion of this act will be translated into several Native languages. These translations will be read by some of the non-Native people in attendance. This will serve as a reminder that when an apology is made, it should be communicated as clearly and sincerely as possible to the intended audience. To learn more about the event, you can go to wirelesshogan.com. The Entrepreneurship Hall of Fame has inducted Dave Anderson, founder of Famous Dave's, into the Entrepreneurship Hall of Fame. Anderson is a tribal member of the Lakota Ojibwe Reservation in northern Wisconsin. The 2012 group of entrepreneur honorees include not only Dave Anderson, but also Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx and the world's youngest female billionaire, Subway founder Fred DeLuca, Harrison Rawson, president and CEO of Rawson Hotels and Resort, and Don Dwyer of the Dwyer Group. And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me and have a grand day.